Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. Dave Shondell joins us. Always been a friend of the show. We've appreciated him being on time and again. And his team had a huge weekend last weekend, and a harrowing one as well. Wins over in Kansas, over Kansas University of Kansas and Kansas University, and also Marquette, a couple of ranked teams to bring the Boilermakers record 3-2. And with a young team, and you talked about that at length. No layups tonight, certainly. When you face SMU, then tomorrow either Houston, in that situation where Houston or Kentucky. So glad to be 3-2, Coach, but the challenges continue for your team.
Well, certainly after the first weekend where we went 1-2 at home, to go on the road for the first time and be at the home opener for the Jayhawks.
Yeah.
Who have a really good squad. I mean, they're athletic and physical. To pull off a 5-set win against them, and then to turn around the next afternoon and beat Marquette, who's been ranked in the top 16. Most of the last couple of years. I thought it was a really nice weekend and lifted our spirits and built some confidence, I think, with our team.
You talk about the youth of your team. You've got talent. Baptism under fire. Where the first weekend, you were certainly in a situation where you had opportunities to win those matches as well, and didn't. And that could be due to a number of reasons. But you look back now and say, boy, you get those 2 wins by 17, 15 scores. That's going to be some character building for your team.
Yeah, I just think that our fans need to understand is not only is our team relatively young, and I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I'm just not going to do it, all right? Because we're really very talented and we'll not be young after a while because we've gone through some battles already. But it seems like every team we're playing is a veteran team.
Yeah.
You look at their starting 7, and they've got 2 or 3 grad students and 2 or 3 seniors and maybe a junior. And that's been the trend in all 5 of our matches. And you look at our squad, and we got a 5th-year kid, Skimmerhorn, and we got Colvin, who's a junior. And then you're playing all freshmen and sophomores for the most part after that. And early in the season, it's just tough. I felt like when we put the schedule together, we thought Meg Renner was going to be our starting setter. She's a 5th-year kid that got hurt in the last spring match of the season and kind of ended her career as a Boilermaker. And so now we're using 2 different setters from time to time. One of them is Lauren Poulter, who's a transfer from Denver, who is a 5th-year kid, but her first couple months here at Purdue. And then Taylor Anderson, who is a true freshman out of San Antonio, who is very gifted athletically. So we thought we were going to have a little bit more seasoned team as far as veteran Purdue players. And I thought we would handle those 3 at home, but we did not. We lost to 3 to Creighton, who's ranked, I think, 15th in the country. And then we lost to Loyola of Chicago in 5 after we led 12-8 in the 5th set.
Yeah, and that was and also Eva Hudson coming back in this situation too. She'd only been what 15 practices, had taken. She didn't take any time off. Well, she was off because of injury 6 to 7 weeks before that. That made a huge difference in that first week. And again, you're the last thing as a seasoned coach, you don't make excuses, but it did have an impact on how you played that first weekend.
Yeah, it certainly did. We just wanted to rest Eva. She had taken probably 5 million swings, between the time she arrived on campus and spent time with the USA team on a team that went to the, I think it was the Pan Am Cup down in Mexico. So she didn't get any kind of a break, really, while she was here. We felt like for her benefit and the whole program's benefit, let's give her about 7 weeks off. And I just assumed that she would snap back and be the exact same player that she's been, but it wasn't that easy. She just wasn't the same condition. We've seen a lot of improvement, since that first weekend, both at Kansas and this week during the workouts that we've had.
Yeah, you've got this weekend, obviously SMU Friday night tonight, and an opportunity to play again, like all teams that have been in and around the top 25. Kentucky, a team that ousted you from the NCAAs a while back, an excellent program. But you might end up playing Houston. Who knows? I know you don't have you don't know what that's going to happen till Friday night. But talk about just the fact that your schedule has been, and what's been your philosophy of really there are no easy matches in this schedule from now. From the beginning of the season, really to the end of the season, that's been a philosophy of yours. Have you changed that over the years, or have you really developed that? Said, "Hey, we got to be that way if we're going to survive the Big Ten."
I just think the metrics have changed
Yeah.
how coaches look at this. That the RPI is such a strong factor, and if you don't have a good RPI, you don't have any chance of hosting the first and second round, yet alone getting the top 4 seed and host the first 4 matches of the entire tournament. That's the dream scenario, is that you're one of the top 4 seeds, and as long as you win, you host the first and second round at your place,
Yeah.
and then you host the regional at your place. And there's a direct correlation between that and advancing to the Final Four, believe it or not. Yeah. So that has a lot to do with it. And we just feel like, even though we're young, we got really good talent, in that we put these guys on the floor against people, they're going to win their fair share. Now, the problem is, you get in the Big Ten, you're going to play 20 Big Ten matches, and if the Big Ten is like normal, those aren't easy wins. No. So you got to keep your head above water in non-conference, and we may have gone over the top a little bit, but we won't know that until it's over. I mean, we're 3-2 right now. We've got 4 matches to play. You're talking about SMU, who beat Baylor last night, who was ranked 5th in the country, and they're really good. And then you play either Houston or Kentucky, who are both top 25 ranked teams. Then you got Central Florida, who went to the Sweet 16 last year, and then you've got USC. Yeah. So it's not going to be any breaks. And the tough part about that is you don't get a chance to get players in the game like you'd like to. And that's the other issue with the RPI. You just don't feel like, as a coach, it's not like high school where everybody gets into the state tournament. So you can get beat 15 times during the season. Here, every time you lose, it hurts your chances of getting the situation that you're trying to get when the tournament begins.
Yeah, big factor in that, and it is the proverbial tightrope act.
But let me just say one other thing, is that playing these great teams identify the areas that you need to really focus on.
Yeah, and that's an advantage. Yeah.
Well, we just knew our serve receive was really mediocre that first weekend. And there was some blocking deficiencies that we noticed against the teams that we were playing. And so we had to figure out in practice, what are we going to do differently? We need to spend a lot of time on this and a lot of time on that. And then we come out the next week and we're a lot better in those areas. Yeah. Now, we're not where we need to be yet, but we're a lot better. If we'd have played, 3, mid-major or small major, smaller Division I programs, we might have won 3 matches and thought we were king of the hill. And this way, we found out just the opposite. And I think that opened our eyes up and got the kids the athletes to work a little bit harder last week in practice. And they always work hard, but I think they were a little more focused after those losses.
Now, on your podcast this week, which is a must listen for Purdue volleyball fans and Purdue fans, Dig City, the way Corey Palm, and you do a very entertaining 30 minutes every week.
I don't know about that, but
it's as entertaining as you guys have. It explains what the heck's going on for people like me that are not watching it every week, and it's helpful, to say the least. And
I appreciate that.
And Corey is good as that as well.
Very good.
And you do such a good job of just talking, explaining it all to everybody, what you're trying to get done. And that's, I think, is important. But one of the things I thought you said in this week's show or podcast was about recruiting. And you've obviously recruited at an extremely high level. I mean, you've got Chloe Chicoine, who was the Big Ten Freshman of the Week and is probably living up to billing. I don't know if the coach would say absolutely, but she certainly is making an impact early on. And yet, and you've recruited an extremely good class. But you also mentioned about the way the transfer portal continues to infiltrate. You've got a great culture. You tend to not have kids leave. They have, but not very many. You have a lot of people that are interested in coming in. How much is that evolving from your standpoint in terms of recruiting? And the portal? I mean, is that going to change? You don't have a lot of room at the end right now because of the next upcoming classes. But talk about that and how that's going to continue to evolve as you continue to develop your program.
Well, I think first and foremost, we feel like we can train players.
Yeah.
So if we can get one of the top recruits that we're going after, then we want to recruit that player and bring them in. But if we miss, which is what coaches will do sometimes. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going after one of the 4 best middle hitters in America, and they decide they want to go to Stanford or go, somewhere else. How far down do you go to feel like you're comfortable that that player can develop and make your team better, in a year or two, what it might be. At the same time, because I think that we're, our reputation as a program is very good and we're playing in the right conference, that there's going to be somebody out there at the end of this season that might fill that scholarship. It might not be for 4 years. It might be for 1 year or 2 years, but will come in and join your team and maybe make you better because they've played a while and they want to be part of this program because of the players we got in the future that we have. So you got to be careful that you just don't take whoever's next in line as a recruit. That you have to know that they're going to make you better and they have the athletic ability and the size to get that done. So I think that's kind of what you're referring to when we talked about that on Dig City. But again, we also talked about the fact that we currently have 6 scholarship athletes in our freshman class.
Right.
And I think we have 3 maybe in our sophomore class. So we have 9 of those scholarships in 2 classes. So we don't have a lot to offer, in the next year or two. And one of those years, we pretty much have already got that done anyway. So you just don't have, when this freshman class graduates, then we're going to have a big class coming in, or we'll probably divide that up in between recruits out of high school and trying to get people off of the portal.
Yeah, I think it's going to, again, it's a game. I don't know if it's chess or checkers or what it is, but it's something that you guys have to deal with.
How about Stratego? Do you ever play Stratego?
Yes, I did. I was never very good at it, Coach. I don't know.
Yeah.
It may not surprise you all that much.
I don't know. I thought it was a great game. I used to play it with my dad all the time.
Yeah, and there's another one out there that my son tries to play. That I'm trying to think of the name of it now. The Canard. That's got some of that same stuff. Strategery is not my forte all the time. All right, you look at this wonderful world that you had such smooth sailing in your coaching career till about 2 years ago, and I'm being somewhat facetious because none of us know what you go through, but transfer portal we've talked about, NIL, we'll hit about that a little bit, and then of course that realignment is going to make the Big Ten very interesting and valuable. But NIL and obviously you can't talk a lot about that, but it is a big part of what you need to do at your program. Talk about just that philosophy and what needs to, right now the world of the collective and the way it is now is the way it is. So how big of an impact is it in recruiting? I know you've mentioned some things like, that's not the first, that maybe most kids don't even talk about that in your visits, but it still is important for the long-term health of the program, at least in the short term of how long collectives last.
Well, I think that, as you mentioned, volleyball players are looking, because I think of their background and the families that we're used to dealing with volleyball players. They're looking for an education. Yeah. They're looking for a great place to play where they're going to be treated well. We haven't had a player come to me while recruiting and ask me about how much money they're going to get from NIL. They might like to hear about it, but they're not asking about it. And really, it's so early that there's not a lot of facts that we can even give them about NIL. Now, we recently have had an organization put together that did a great job this past weekend, putting our first event on, the Choose to Win. I'm allowed to educate people. I'm not allowed to ask for money.
That's what I wanted to make sure I didn't ask you a question.
I'm allowed to educate people. And we do. There is an organization out there that is designed, for a volleyball program. We're working with the Boilermaker Alliance. They are the Choose to Win is part of their operation, and we're just happy we got something rolling for our volleyball team, and our players are very excited about that. And I think that when you have Nebraska in your league, which just got a $5 million donation for their volleyball NIL, and there's other programs out there that do have a significant amount of money to utilize, and you want to try to win the Big Ten, then you need to hopefully have something in place for your program that's going to allow you to compete with those other operations.
Yeah. Nebraska, 92,000 fans. Ross Aid's now been enclosed, coach. So that'd be a great idea for a match. I know you've got the probably one of the most dominating home courts in the country, but what an unbelievable thing for volleyball. The fact that you put 92,000 people at Nebraska for a match, really good for the sport, to say the least.
No, it was an unbelievable thing, and the fact that volleyball now has the world record for women attendance in any sport or any activity, that's pretty neat. And as I mentioned before, the job that Nebraska did was unbelievable. I mean,
Unreal.
they closed school that day at Nebraska, so the students could all attend it. It was actually a volleyball day in the state of Nebraska, so all the high school teams could come. Their athletics director was on board, in a big way. Their president was there, and everything. And I thought they did a fabulous job. And Nebraska does that. They're kind of the only show in the state to some extent, and they're going to fill. That's why they're still filling the football stadium every day, every Saturday they're playing, because they haven't been that great. But yet everybody's still going to show up because that's Nebraska, and they support their state institution.
Yeah. Everybody is showing up, and then some, basically a sellout for the entire season for your team. And really, the fact that you've got a student section that's as good as it gets. Talk about that and just what that difference can be. It's you've said many times, it's almost worth the price of admission just to come to watch what the students are going to do at your matches. But talk about just that and that home court advantage, so to speak.
I think it makes a big difference for us to have that kind of a crowd. And the way our venue is designed, Alan, as you know, it's not very big.
Nope.
And I worked with the people when we put these new bleachers in to get them as close to the floor as NCAA diagrams would allow. And so they're right on the floor. And our fans are vocal. They get it. They've got a cheer for every single player when they come into the game and they go back to serve. And the last couple of years, they've been as good as ever. I mean, we've really got it going with them right now, but we have to win. Yeah. They're not going to keep storming, the gates of Holloway if we're not winning. And so this team will win because we've got some real toughness and some really good athletes. So we will win. But this weekend will be big. Next weekend will be big. And then we get into Big Ten play. It will be big. But you're right. Our fans love those students. Our adult fans, they just can't get enough of our students. And they students set the tone, and they make the noise, and it turns into possibly the loudest arena in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no doubt. It is intimate with a capital I there at Holloway Gym. All right, last question. You've got 4 new teams that are going to enter the Big Ten. Just look at, obviously USC's had its moments. You're going to face them anyway. UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. Talk about that. Not the travel's been talked about. I understand there may be some things to be worked out. I don't know how that's going to progress, but certainly you have 4 more quality teams in a loaded league.
Well, UCLA and USC have been national champions several times. They're traditionally top 10, top 15 programs. Washington has won at least a couple of national championships, and they're not in the top 25 right now, but they traditionally are in the top 15. And then you have Oregon, which in most sports is moving up rapidly because they have a lot of things happening out there at Oregon that attract, athletes. And so those are 4 schools that are going to traditionally be top 20, top 25 teams. And you put them in a league that already has 7 or 8 teams in the top 25 traditionally. So I think if I do the math, that's like 12 or 13 top 25 teams that are going to be in one particular league. The problem I have is that our coaches still want to play 20 matches. And I think for a lot of schools, their job of making the NCAA tournament just got harder.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the league just got better. And if it used to be you'd play 20 matches, but you've just added 4 high-level teams to that. So chances are you're going to play better teams now in those 20 than what you played before. And you're still trying to get over that 500 metric to be eligible. And it's just going to be really difficult. And my suggestion was to play 18. That gives you a chance then to go play 2 other schools outside your league that can give you possible wins and maybe even good, play teams with good records. Like we traditionally play Bowling Green. They're not easy to beat, okay, but
Yeah.
we've been able to beat them, and they're going to have a 25-7 record. For RPI purposes, that's really good. Instead of playing maybe playing USC, who's got at least a 50-50 chance to beat you, okay, and their record won't even be as good at the end of the day. So I had a problem with that, but nobody wants to listen to me, and so that's okay. But you're going to fill your gym. I know I mentioned this before. John Cook at Nebraska has been coaching a long time, great coach. He wants to take care of his fans and make sure that they've got great matches to come see and fill his gym. They're going to fill that gym. They're going to make their money for the athletic department, no matter who's playing at Nebraska. They've never haven't sold out at the Devaney Center. Okay. Yeah. So I just think that, we got to look after all the teams. It's not all about us. I mean, I know a lot of people at Purdue would like me to think it's all about us. And at the end of the day, we want to win. But if this is about the Big Ten getting as many teams into the NCAA tournament as possible, in my opinion, I think there's a better way to do it.
All right, well said. I think it's going to be a great time for volleyball. Volleyball's never been hotter, so to speak. Big Ten volleyball hasn't been that, and you guys have a lot to do with that in terms of that interest level. From television ratings on down, it's a big deal, and it will continue to be a storyline throughout the course of the year. Coach, thanks so much for your time. Good luck tonight. You'll need it. I could say that to you every match. You're going to need it every night just to be able to compete at this level. But I expect that it'll be exciting for fans and even for the coach alike to see what happens. And we'll be back in a couple minutes. Tom Diener will break down. We didn't even talk to the coach about football, which he's good at understanding what coaches. That'll be the next time we'll hit about that, because he understands coaching about as well as anybody. But Purdue, Virginia Tech, Tom Diener will break down, and we'll look forward to doing that in segment 3. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Gold and Black Live.